Hi everyone, this is Nivedan again here from Coffee and Startups, where we bring out the best of the journeys of startups and their founders. We have a very special guest today. His name is Varun Sadana. He's the co-founder of SuperTails, a pet store and pet community company, and he's also the co-founder of, he was the co-founder of this mega giant billion-dollar company now called Licious. It's a D2C meat brand, and both of these companies are very different and very unique. And just some interesting facts here that SuperTails, it's they've raised about $3.5 million of funds so far, and Deepika Padukone happens to be one of their major investors so far. Also, Licious in his previous stint had raised hundreds of millions of dollars from some really renowned investors and founders like Nitin and Nikhil Kamath of Zerodha, Boats Aman Gupta, and many other big names. So he's been there in the industry for a while. He's had a prior background of having studied from NIT, IIM. He's worked in Hindustan Unilever for a while, and then a lot of time in Snapdeal. He was Varun. You've been the early team members of Snapdeal, and you saw the beginning of the e-commerce industry in the country, right? Where what we take for granted today, whether it be in the form of e-commerce or the surrounding industries, you were the first ones to make a move, do the first experiments, take the first risks, and you must have had very special kinds of learnings there. So I want to touch upon your journey. I want to touch upon your current business, both of these on today's call. And I would love if we can, share your valuable insights and lessons with the people who are watching. So welcome, Varun, to Coffee and Startups. How are you doing today?
Thanks a lot, Nivedan. It's amazing to be here. I've seen a lot of your podcasts, and it feels good that I'm going to be one of them. Hopefully, there will be a lot of learnings from this conversation today, which people can take over. A lot of stuff that you talked about. Yes, I've been part of Livers, one of the best stints. It was shortest stint of around 3 years. Spent a lot of time with Snapdeal, almost 5.5, 6 years. Saw the whole journey of how e-commerce kind of got built in the country. Joined Licious, again, a very different kind of a business, solving a very different problem. Got elevated to be a co-founder with Abhen Vivek. That was from a personal front, that was one of the great achievements, as well as probably one of the best learning reports that one can have. Recently in 2021, we came out and started with SuperTails. It's a pet care company, and it's been a great journey in the startup ecosystem. Have learned from a lot of people in this ecosystem, and I think one of the best things about the Indian startup space is that generally founders are really good. So I've been lucky to be surrounded by some of the great founders, where I've learned people like you who now try to bring some of these founders to the forefront, and help all the budding entrepreneurs out there to take a leaf out of the book and build something great of their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited to actually get right into it. I want to understand. I want to start off by saying that first, thank you so much for taking out the time today. I know you have a busy schedule, and you told me that you're moving or you're traveling to US for a few days. You've got a major pet. What did you call it? Conference, was it?
It's a
Pet show.
trade show. Yeah,
Pet trade show, right?
Yeah.
So you're going for that. It's one of the biggest in the world, and it's so interesting that in a country like India, now is the right time that people are kind of getting deep into the idea. Like everyone's accepting the idea of having a pet as a usual thing. This is the time when this is changing at a mass level, and you've started a company right at that time. So I want to start first by asking you, what does SuperTails do? Help us understand that in a very short way first, and then we'll get deeper into this as well as Licious. But I wanted to kind of help us understand where, like, how did this start, and what does SuperTails do in the first place?
Sure. So first, let me talk about what SuperTails is and what SuperTails does. So we at SuperTails, we are in the pet care space. We what we want to do is we want to make pet parenthood more enjoyable, and there is a stress on the word pet parenthood. The way we do it is we solve it by solving for the primary needs of a pet parent, right? So it's like in humans, there is roti, kapda, and makan. For a pet, it's food, healthcare, and behavior training. And the way we are different is that we do all of this at a scale. We are 100% online. So what it means is that, anybody, let's say in E Road or in Lucknow or in Bhagalpur, should be able to get the same service as anyone in Bandra or Indranagar, right? So that's the whole thesis of what we're trying to solve. It's going to be a slow, but surely a very fulfilling journey. It's also the need of the hour, considering so many new pet parents who have come into in the space in the last couple of years. COVID has just fueled it, but this whole notion of being a pet parent is there for last 7-8 years. It's been brewing. And while this is supertails.com, it's 100% online. That's what we do. But I want to stress a little bit on this whole pet parenthood thesis, right? So if you see, colloquially, we normally talk about aap pet owner ho kya, right? And we use the word owner, yes, right? Yes. And it's very common, by the way. It's still very common in the US, in the Western world as well. And that's where this whole thesis started, where people used to call an owner, but talk to any person who has the pet and they don't feel like an owner today, right? Was it true in the early years? The answer is yes. When we were kids, the pets were supposed to be a functional thing, right? They were supposed to guard the house, maybe give you certain entertainment, and wo thesis alag tha. But if you ask somebody today, they say, "Yaar, ye to mera bachcha hai," right? This is like my kid, right? And practically, a lot of people stop differentiating between their own kids, and kids look at the pets as their siblings. So this whole, so no, you don't own your kid, do you? Right? So you don't. So this thesis actually is actually shifting from the pet ownership to what we call as pet parenthood. And I feel there's going to be another shift, right? And the shift is that as newer pet parents come in, and this is largely going to be young people. So imagine a 23, 24, 25-year-old girl or a guy. They feel they're too early to be called a pet parent, right? So they want pets to be a companion, right? Now, this is the whole friendship zone, right? That I have somebody back at home. So our thesis is that while we move from pet ownership to pet parenthood, and people are very happy to call themselves pet parent today, it will move to pet companionship in the next couple of years, largely because the biggest chunk of people who are going to get pets is going to be young people, likely single, immigrant, in society. So, very typical of a place like Bangalore, Bombay, and which is happening in tier 2 as well today, like places like Lucknow, Kanpur, Ahmedabad. It's practically the same thing which is happening across.
Yeah, the trend is pretty explicit. Even in my small sample set of my friends during and post COVID, almost every fourth person I know has gotten a new pet, which is a big number. 25% of your network gets a pet. Now scale it up to all tier 1s, let's say, at the very least, and tier 2s. It's a huge number. So let's understand first, what's the as a non-pet parent or pet friend, to me it is not obvious right now, as an outsider to this experience, that what's such a big deal about pet parenthood, first of all, right? And why isn't it as straight as going to the Amazon, searching for the high quality dog food and cat food, and simply placing an order just like I do for rest of my things? So I want to understand these two things. What's your take on that?
Got it. I see, Nivedan, these are two very large but different questions, right? So let's tackle it one by one, right? The first is, what's this whole thing about pet parenthood? Why are people keeping pets, right? I go back to 2017 when we first built a thesis on pet care, and we had read a paper about this hormone in our body which is called oxytocin, which kind of is actually called the love hormone. It kind of gets fulfilled when there's hugging, touching, kissing, right? And what we learned is that as the GDP of a country increases, people get married a little bit later. People start spending money on themselves. And the first industry to benefit from that ends up being D2C, right? Because people end up spending money on themselves, right? So this is around 2013, 14, 15, 16 when some of the D2C brands start getting, built in the country. The second thing which happens is because now you have the oxytocin needs to be fulfilled, right? So you require practically a companion to fulfill that, right? Most of the people have moved their cities, so they're, you look at your friends, partners to fulfill that, right? So the first thing that happens is companies like Tinder, Bumble, etc. starts coming to the foreground, right? And all of this is hormonal, right? At the end of the day, so it's oxytocin, right? The second thing which happens is that people start keeping pets because at the end of the day they still want to keep fulfilling oxytocin. So we had this vague thesis back in 2017. Obviously we were very young. We never gave so much impetus to anything which is academic. 2020 when COVID happened, and we saw the way lockdown happened and we felt, hey, Tinder is not working. Does it mean that people will start keeping more pets? Because that was the thesis. And that's exactly what happened, right? People suddenly started keeping so many more pets, right? But the way we want to talk about it is that we kind of ended up fulfilling our hormones in terms of oxytocin was getting fulfilled, right? Now practically this is how we feel that the first large wave of pet care in the country has come in. The second large wave will come with what we call as the peer network effect, right?
A critical mass of people.
Absolutely. And it's a very common thesis, which, the reason why we end up buying cars is because our friends have started to buy cars. The reason we start having girlfriends or boyfriends is because our friends, our cousins start having those, right? We get married practically for the same reason. It's an unknown pressure which starts getting hit with you, and also what you see, you start feeling, why should I be different? And there's a whole thesis about human behavior wanting to be part of the larger clan, the way they behave, right? What you would have also started seeing, while you did mention 25% of your friends have gotten pets, the amount of conversations around pets have gotten massive, right? And we started feeling that as well, even before we started SuperTails. I've had a pet all my life, but there was just nobody to talk about my cat. I've had three dogs.
You must have been the odd one out having a cat. I mean, it's still absolutely a bigger deal to have a cat than a dog.
True that. It's changing very fast, and there are some reasons around it, and we can touch upon that later as well. But the conversations during evening parties, during when people were collecting, started to be different, right? When we were young, it was practically cricket, right? And then we were getting older, it was office and maybe the other gender, right? You talk about guys talk about girls talk about guys. But suddenly we started seeing that there were conversations which were saying, hey, this is what Coco is doing. You know what Coco is doing? This is what Coco is doing, right? What Whiskey is doing. Whiskey is actually, the day he was puked and I had to run and I had to do this and I had to do that. And those conversations had suddenly exploded. And imagine being on the other side. Now, you don't feel like an alien if somebody gives you an idea, hey, do you I have a puppy, do you want to foster it? And the questions earlier were, मैं करूँ कैसे, मुझे पता ही नहीं क्या करना, right? And today the question is like, ठीक है, okay, if I have time, I will talk to 10 people and understand what needs to be done, but I think I'll be able to pull it off. It's 5 days, it's an emergency, I will be able to do it, right? Some of those things never existed. So we are kind of opening up. And so coming back to the question that you asked around pet parenthood, practically it's increasing largely because of the want of fulfilling those hormones and then the peer network effect, which will kick in. We look at this as a decently long-term thing. It will stay. We know marriages are getting late. We know fertility rates are decreasing in the country, right? Those are some of the facts that we all know, right? So which would mean people will want to fulfill oxytocin and go and have more pets. That's your short way of starting it off.
So if a founder tomorrow is to approach you and say, Varun, I have an idea, how do I how do I validate if there's a market? Are you going to be probably the person who hands over a few scientific research papers and say, you know what, the hormone levels have been proven to be going down, something like that sort, and then be very scientific in your approach? What reaction do you expect to get from such, when someone asks you this? Have you actually advised someone to actually look at science as a tool for research?
All the time. Our whole thesis was, I always, and we have had some conversations before, and I know even you love going back to some of these academic concepts, right? I am a strong believer of first principle thinking, but I don't like to overdo it. If somebody has already done it, then just use it, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to solve the Pythagoras theorem again, right? It's been solved. So and I think the amount of research that has happened in the world is just amazing, and obviously Google gives you that bridge to reach for that.
Yes.
So many, how to manage teams. A lot of people ask me, in your experience, what's the best way to manage teams? And I always end up saying, why do you need my experience for it? There are books and books which I've written, which have kind of cracked the code, right? And I go and read them and just try to follow some of them, and some things work, some things don't, right? And so, at the end of the day, that's what you got to do, but you got to try all of them, right? So some of the things you shouldn't solve by first principle thinking.
So I want to come to this team hiring aspect again after we are done with this bit. So the second part of the question was, what's missing in something like an Amazon, that because I can find a bunch of pet food and pet care items there. What is it not serving us with that you felt the need to start off SuperTails?
Super. Yeah, so iska na pet care का analogy human baby से लेते हैं, right? So I think that will be easier for one to understand it, right? So when so the human baby, basically a person gets to know at least 8 months in advance, right? So and what happens in those 8 months, you practically start getting prepared for what is called as parenthood, right? There are going to be physical changes, mental changes, your life is going to be different. But what the most important thing that one ends up doing at that time is collecting a massive amount of information. Interestingly, specifically in our ecosystem, there is dadis, masis, dadaji, and everyone who has a lot of information around it, sisters, brothers. The men will go and ask their friends, the women will go and ask their friends, but just the word out ki, hey, I am pregnant, I'm going to have a baby, which would mean you will get a massive amount of information free of cost, right? On top of it, you will also go and do your research. But what I'm trying to tell you is there is a decent amount of time where you can collect this information, right? अब pet care की बात करते हैं. Let's say you and I are chatting and suddenly you feel, hey, talking to Varun, it doesn't look like pet care, being a pet parent is going to be that difficult, right? Also 25% of my friends have pets. Also, also, my partner has had this talk, should we keep a pet or not? Also, sometimes people have kids and they come back here, my friend ABC has a dog, so I should also have one. Now this has been weighing on you, right? On a good day or a bad day, suddenly you think, yeah, chalo decision leke dekhte hain, I want a little bit of change in my life, right? And what's the next step that you do? Now you are practically wanting information, but at the same time you just are very restless in getting that pet home, right? So you practically have a very short time to learn and get the pet home, right?
The pregnancy period is very small.
Is practically very small, right? I love going back to academic concepts. So there is this Dunning-Kruger effect, which I want everybody who's listening to go and read. It's a very common effect. So just imagine a new person shifting to Bangalore from Delhi, and you initially super excited. So you're at the top of the curve where you absolutely excited. Beer, toilets, beer, lots of friends, amazing weather, right? So your confidence is really high. So Dunning-Kruger's curve says, in simple terms, the less you know, the more confident you are, right? So you're absolutely confident, I'll go and crack it there. Maza hi aa jayega. You land in Bangalore, everything is amazing. You get out of the airport, you feel the best breeze you've ever had in your life. And you think, hey, it's a good day. But then you're like, it's going to be like this for 12 months of the year. And suddenly after a couple of days you start hitting the harsh realities, right? Ki, autos nahi milte hain, barish ho jati, the city has a lot of traffic, things are not easy, ghar nahi mil rahe hain, and so forth, right? And it takes a couple of months to get into that schedule where you start becoming back. So it follows a kind of a half sine curve, and people should go and look at this curve. Now in Pet Parenthood, like Nivedan decides he wants to have a puppy at home. Now he is going to follow the same curve, right? He will be super duper confident that Arey yaar, bas kal this dog will come in. You spend more time in thinking about the name of the pet, rather than thinking what are the changes that I need to do, right? At max you'll end up calling a couple of folks. So Pet Parenthood is not as simple as the puppy will come home, my life is going to change for good. All I have to do is just feed this puppy and everything is going to be done, right? मुझे जाके कुछ products खरीदने and that's about it, right? वो भी मेरे दोस्त बता देंगे. It's 180 degrees different, right? It's absolutely different, right? It's because you don't have information, unlike a baby, which is for the next couple of months is totally dependent on the mother. In this case the puppy is start whining the day one, they're going to start chewing things in the house day one, right? The food might or might not suit the puppy, right? You will get so many different information because your breed is different. So now somebody has given you an example, here take this food, but that's for a Shih Tzu. Now you have Rottweiler, what do you do, right? So now you're kind of confused, right? What you need to do, and think of yourself in that state and say, hey, look, can a platform like Amazon solve this for me, right? The answer is no, because Amazon will solve for you what you know, but in this case you don't know, right? You need a platform to help you make the right decisions. At the same time, you need information, and you need information from a credible source. In this case, who's a credible source? It's a vet, right? The vet is the only credible source, right? Because they have seen puppies and kittens in most abundance, and so that's what we try to solve. We say, hey, look, there are people who will need help, and I need to have certain people who have the position of authority on our platform to help people out. And that's what we do as part of the service of solving for products, which obviously is one of the core requirements. And that's where the business gets built. Products is where the business gets built. Service is where the problem gets solved, right? And this is how this whole business comes together.
Got it. That makes perfectly explicit sense that you basically are solving for the problem of early pet parenthood. And just like a baby, you need some degree of community support, infrastructure, and some expert advice around you, which is very easy to get in the terms of baby, typically, at least for an Indian family. But for a pet, there is still not enough. Maybe there will be a day when it will be enough, but that day is not soon, right? And you're accelerating the process to that day in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. So India has around 7% of households have pets, right? When we look at a country like US, almost 66% of households have pets, right? And a very interesting fact is 6% of households in the US have horses, right? So that's 6%. Amazing. 6%. Yeah. It's amazing, right? That's a very, very huge number. At the same time, when we talk about nutrition, right, which is the next thing, right? You need to, roti kapda makan mein roti chahiye, right? Nutrition, when you talk about the pet food, packaged food penetration in India, which is somewhere around 6 to 7%, and this number in US is upwards of 60%. In Europe, it's upwards of 80%. In a country like Australia, it's 99%, right? And there's the one simple reason why this is happening is because our nutrition is absolutely very different from a pet's nutrition, right? And imagine cats, we all know are carnivorous, but हमारे दिमाग में बिल्ली तो दूध पीती है, right? And cats are lactose intolerant, right? One of the largest myths that we have kind of supported all the time. Well, kittens will have it, but grown-up cats will have it only because there's nothing else, right? So you can, it's like that. So pet nutrition is very, very, very different. We somehow expect it to kind of follow the same as human nutrition. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why pets in India don't live as long as pets in the other countries, right? So nutrition is important.
Wow.
Absolutely. And that's something that is, SuperTails exists fundamentally to increase longevity of life, right? So can we give more time between you and your pet, right? That's the vision that we have, right? We got to increase the time that you spend with your pet, right? So ये कहानी है यार, इसमें तो बहुत कुछ करना है.
No, fair enough. No, this is actually, it makes a lot of sense. And just listening to you about this, the kind of myths that perpetrate, I also got to know a couple of years ago when a friend of mine had a couple of kittens home, that cats actually don't drink milk. And it just occurred to me, since you kind of stand for the health and longevity of your pet friends, you could easily run a campaign by the name #Billi Doodh Nahi Peeti to highlight. That's a good one. I'm going to write down. Yeah. Yeah, I charge for my ideas, but I'll let this one go free. So #Billi Doodh Nahi Peeti could literally be a quirky Jagrukta campaign.
Yeah.
Saying that pets deserve better knowledge and we need to get over this ignorance which is causing them trouble. This is causing them their life at times. So anyway, so that just occurred in my head. I said I thought.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we have covered this bit where I think you've deeply explained the proposition, the hypothesis, why it made sense for you to kick it off. I want to know, where do we stand at today? I think those numbers weren't available to me somehow. So if you could help me, what's the business up to today?
Yeah, sure. So we started in June 2021. So it's been almost 14 odd months that we started. Today we have served more than 50,000 customers. We have done almost 15,000 vet consultations as well. And I'll come to the thesis. It's a very interesting thesis that we have built on vet consultations. We have a massive repeat rate of almost 60% of our customers buy in the next month, right? So it's fundamentally
60%.
Yeah, in terms of revenue, it's really good. More than 50% of them come back in the next month, right? So it's a fantabulous opportunity, I would say, in the pet care because of the lack of choices that people end up having. At the same time, we have raised more capital than you actually ended up mentioning. We have raised almost 6.5 mil till now.
Okay.
We did a round in January. We didn't talk about it much.
Got it.
But we are also in the process of raising another round as we speak. So that's almost done as well. So yeah, this category is getting attention of not just the pet parents, not just the people around, but also attracting the right quality of capital as well, right? Because some of these industries, when they need to be built from scratch, require a lot of capital, right? And you require some heavyweights to come and help build some of these industries. So that's a very good thing, and that kind of shows that this is the right time to build this business.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, do you think by the virtue of this industry that you're in, you naturally tend to attract a bit more of people on the empathy side? Would that be the case? I'm just wondering.
So बहुत interesting है ये ना. It has worked for us in both sides. On one side, it has been a little bit easier to attract talent because this is a selling proposition. Everybody loves pets at the end of the day, right? Yeah. So just the thought about doing something in the space that you like. Imagine you are a pet parent, you have gone through those problems and you don't want others to go through the problem. It's a very obvious choice to work in the pet care industry, right? And if you are good at something, in your case, let's say product and some other things, and theoretically, there is a product role. As somebody who's looking for a job, it kind of is a connect there. At the same time, the other side also works for us because people come in with a lot of passion, right? So you end up having a lot of empathy built fundamentally because of the industry as well, right?
Exactly.
Even before I solve a problem, I know it because I've gone through it, right? So I was just talking to one of the founders yesterday, Shashank from The Whole Truth, and he was talking, and I was asking him, how did you build a company which is so empathetic towards customers? And he said, we talk about every customer. We just don't talk about customer as a data point. We talk about every customer as if that's a real customer, right? And we just came back and we were saying, hey, look, while we do, it's a very similar thesis that we have. It's so much easier for us to do it because एक भी बंदे का प्रॉब्लम है, मुझे पता है यार, अच्छा, I know what you're going through, because most of the time I'm not able to say I know what you're going through, right? And in this case, in a lot of cases, we are able to say it. I know what you're going through.
Yeah,
right? So
I think it's a deeply
emotional
and personal experience that a lot of people happen to share together. It's like a common struggle that each of the pet parents kind of do go through, which makes it a shared experience. I think that does count towards this, because something, let's say like a fintech, right? I for example have never taken a personal loan or any big loan or something. Maybe I'll need to at a later stage, but I simply find it difficult to empathize with that yet today, right? And there are so many things. For example, I've never needed to visit banks, and I find the concept of a branch very absurd. It seems to me that these are all just wasting land. Right? They're wasting prime real estate almost, especially in today's digital world. I'm just saying that I simply don't have that experience that my father has had, and I don't have empathy towards some of his check writing habits. Like, not because I'm not sensitive, but because it's not my personal experience. So if tomorrow if someone tells me that, I'm eliminating checks from this world, do you want to join me on this mission? I'm not sure if I know how painful a check is. Right? So that's I think one good thing going for you, on top of the fact that you can always jump on the viral dog and cat videos as the easiest, organic, cheapest marketing form ever. Other industries must be really, really envious that they get to, they need to hire expensive models, and there you are. Every other dog can be the perfect model for your business.
True that. Some of the perks, but it's difficult to make the model. Let me also tell you that. Sometimes you feel, I wish I could pay somebody money and get the job done. That sounds a little bit.
So you should put out an ad, only high IQ dogs and cats only. They need to get what we are saying.
Yeah, absolutely against the thesis, but I hear you.
No, but just out of curiosity also, do you have right now, are you on work from home policy, or do you have a physical setup for everyone?
Okay, so we have two offices. It's a physical setup, one which runs the product side of the business, and one which runs the services side of the business, right? So all the vets, all the trainers are on our roll, so they work only with us. These are super high quality people who have decided to kind of work with us on this mission, and so they have a different setup. It kind of works because it's online consultations. Everybody needs their own room. It needs to be noise cancellations and all of that. So that's a different setup. Interesting setup, because there are always so many dogs and cats there. That's also
I was about to come to that. You have dogs, a lot of dogs and cats in your office?
Yeah, so 75% of the people in our company have pets, and as per policy, anybody who joins who doesn't have pets need to have one in the next 1 year, because that's kind of a condition precedent, right?
Really? So are you basically booing and shaming non-pet owners when they walk in the first day? Are people hushing and then, this guy doesn't have a dog?
No, now people have gotten used to, this guy doesn't have a dog, yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, but I can already imagine, like, if I were in there and if I had a pet, I would kind of embarrass the non-pet owners all the time by saying, are you sure?
So interestingly, a lot of the people who joined our mission have had pets after they came around, right? But this was one of the things that we did talk about. Ki yaar, ye karna padega. We understand you got to shift cities. We understand you got to settle down. You understand you also have to see if you want to work in this space. But as and when you're sure, which is practically around 3 to 4 months, we would want you to start thinking about keeping a pet, right? It comes back to the same point, Nivedan, that you talked about, which is empathy, and the point that I was talking about, which is passion. If this space requires a lot of passion to build, it's a very patient space, right? It's not a fintech app where you just get a lot of people to register and the business can suddenly start becoming much larger. Every pet parent is a different pet parent, right? And what they go through, it's honestly not easy. Chewy in the US, Chewy.com in the US, proved it to the whole world. The way they built that business was, they can take Zappos learning and build a business on customer experience, right? And I feel that India requires to do that. A lot of times people asked us, why do you keep inventory? Why, in today's world, you shouldn't be spending money in keeping inventory in your own books. You shouldn't hire vets on your own platform. You should run like a proper marketplace.
Asset light, it must be the buzzword all the time. Yeah.
And I'm like, look, this industry is very different, right? And I'll just give you a small example, right? Let's say a customer calls and says, I was supposed to get the food and it's not reached here, right, to me today, right? Now, if I ask people what's the fundamental problem statement that the customer care on my side has to solve, right? And this is the difference between us and everybody else, is that the problem is not the fact that the product has not reached. The problem is to find out if the dog is hungry, because if the dog is hungry, right, if the dog is hungry, that's a very different problem statement. Now solve that first. Now if it means you've got to get on your bike and go and solve, and you will say it's not scalable, but my question is, hey, look, it's a problem, somebody's got to solve it, right? If you want to do a Dunzo or a Swiggy to get that product delivered, just do that for once, because your role is not just to solve for SuperTails, you're solving for the pet parents problem. Now solve that first. Now come back to solving for SuperTails, right? And that's the thesis that we built. Now, if I am not a pet parent, I don't think I can give this solution, because I might not empathize. For me, it's a packet of food, right? I will say, hey, सर आपका खाना शाम तक पहुंच जाएगा, मैं अपनी टीम को एस्केलेट कर देता हूं सप्लाई चेन, which is the most common answer that you will always hear. So we have escalated it to the internal team. You will get a response in the next 24 to 48 hours, right? Now you are a pet parent, you'll say, WTF, man, I don't care. My dog is hungry. I need to solve for that, right? Now, so I'm just giving you a difference of what customer care should be. And what is relevant in our industry, right? Is the same relevant in some other industries? Maybe it's not going to change, right? But in this case, it's my baby. I can't wait for the next 2 hours, forget 48 hours.
Wow. No, this makes perfect sense. I think this is a perfect example that, especially for you, as you mentioned the example, customer support, people find them to be typically very powerless themselves, first of all, and very unempathetic, because they've been constrained to certain rules and guidelines beyond which they don't have. That's why I'm calling powerlessness in that sense. Some of these folks are really nice and they really want to help you, but my experience has been that being on both sides, as a customer who's calling up frustrated and angry, versus someone who's been on the back end trying to solve for these customer concerns as an e-commerce category owner, right? I realized that empathy is one of the biggest differentiators one can have, and you put it in such great terms that to solve for a late delivery versus to solve for a living thing's hunger are two very different problems. And there is absolutely no comparison between these two problems. Once you ask the right question, there is no chance you can't deliver a phenomenal experience. I wish people who are leading customer support teams are listening to this right now. It's something that is very close to me personally, I think, because I've tried my best to be very empathetic to my sellers back then at Meesho, and I've been the most prompt manager they've ever had, and they used to tell me that Arjun Vedya, that's how we became very good friends, because he would have concerns, he would know Nivedan would help me out best. Right. And even after I wasn't owning that category anymore, I moved on to another category. He used to call me up a couple of times that, can you help me with this, because the other person is, maybe they're busy or something like that, and I could understand their hesitation. So I can appreciate that quite a lot, and that was mainly because I had a very lucky opportunity in Meesho. After the founder, I was the first person to ever go out on an independent research trip in Lucknow, Ghaziabad side of things, where I was looking to understand if people would purchase health and supplement products from Meesho, right? And because Meesho is extremely different, it's a push-based e-commerce rather than a pull search-based e-commerce. So how do you push someone a supplement? Suddenly swiping through and then you're like, vitamin D khalo. It's such a weird idea. But we said, you know what, let's not intuition rule us, let's run experiments. And that's what he was doing. And I was the first one to do that. And I met such amazing people. Our resellers are beautiful people. They were women, typically 30 to 40 years old. And they told me about their deepest personal experiences and what Meesho meant to them. I came back as a transformed man, and so much so that I brought in such stories that a couple of those resellers are now faces in Meesho, literally printed next to the CEO's desk.
Wow.
There's a lady by the name
Amazing.
Lavi Srivastav, and people who know me, they would know that I've spoken about her a lot. And she told such beautifully deep stories of her, which were extremely painful to extremely ecstatic. Right? She told that entire thing, and I was so touched that okay, Meesho means so much to someone's life beyond कि order place करने में convenience देते हैं हम, right? या आपको पैसे कमाने में help करते हैं. The fact that financial earning for a homemaker means a lot to her self-image, identity, respect she gets from everyone, the independence she feels to be able to spend 50 rupees without asking her husband is just invaluable. Those 50 rupees is way more important than the 5,000 rupees she earns over a period of, let's say, a few weeks.
Yeah.
So she's not earning big amount, but the small amounts, the independence that she buys is just invaluable. So that was the empathy bit. And from that day onwards, I almost felt like I had a sense of mission. And I can see that you're trying to inculcate that in SuperTails. 75% and 25% yet to be owners, pet parents is a remarkable feat, I would say already. So thank you for sharing this very unique process that you've built. And I would insist if you could, publish a bit more on your personal or company pages that, this is how we approach customer experience. This needs to be put out more. This simple question of empathy changes a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And another part of that is more than 50% of our employees are women. It was, with three founders, all of them guys. So we said, hey, look, the first three people that we're going to hire are going to be women. And that's how we will always have the ratio of 50%. And a lot of people have asked me, now ECG is there. So whenever you're fundraising, etc., some of these questions come in. So people ask, ye kaise karte ho? And I have a very simple answer to it. We don't fight for it. We just have a simple phenomena of getting equal number of resumes from all the genders, and that's about it. It's just simple. You get equal amount of resumes. So if you have got 2 resumes on a table for men, you have to have the next 2 for women, because that's how it'll work. And so you'll if I've had companies where people have struggled in this, right? Just hire karo yaar, move on karte hain, right? And people have argued, hey, but this is a better candidate, we got them first, right? And it's the reason you're getting them first is because you're not equating at the top of the funnel, which is the resumes, right? So get an equal number of resumes, you will get equal amount of representation from everyone. So so maybe we should publish that as well. Yeah,
I would compel. I think this is actually worth getting deep into, and this can be a remarkable lesson, because every single company, every single founder today does think about how they can make customer experience much better. How can they touch their customer better? Like literally touch their heart's level. This is touching their heart level stuff. Like if the customer care guy is, sir, I'm really sorry. And instead of escalating, you know what, let me get one delivered in an hour because we have access to Dunzo from our central company account. Yeah. If I hear that, I am a fan for life. Forget a customer. Yeah. Right? If I hear that, in fact, you could as well start delivering things a day late and convert your entire population to a fan. I mean, in the sense
there have been, I'll be honest, there have been cases initially when we were getting a supply chain figure out where we bought those products from a competition store outside and delivered it to the customer, because we said, yeah, customer ke ghar mein the dog is hungry, and it's as simple as that. It doesn't matter ये
Right.
product कहाँ
Right.
से आया, अभी तो के लिए तो एक problem solve करते, then let's solve the other problem as well. So, but yeah,
No,
lots of
perfect. No, this is very beautiful. Thank you so much. And I would like to now kind of get into a little bit of your journey
yeah.
before SuperTails. We haven't spoken about that.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, from your personal angle and maybe counting up to Licious a bit, what do you think are the key highlights? I would love to know a bit more about you there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a 2005 graduate from NIT Kurukshetra. I spent a couple of years in IBM. 2007, I did my first startup. Interesting. I was trying to solve for connecting people who have hobbies to connect to people who provide for those hobbies, right? And again, it was a very personal problem. I wanted to learn the guitar. People around me told me
Did we
that.
speak about that on the previous call by any chance?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, maybe we did.
Okay, I was building the exact same thing in 2015.
Oh, is it? Interesting. Oh, no, then maybe we didn't. Okay.
Okay, we'll talk
yeah,
about that
this was,
separately. Yeah.
yeah, sure. But this was the pre-smartphone era, and problem obviously most of the time whenever I have done something, there has to be a problem statement which I felt was to be solved. Right at that time, I felt, hey, look, I want somebody to a guitar teacher practically, right? And it was it took me so many months to find a good one close to my house. And by the time I started learning it in the next 2 months, that person got a job in the US and moved, right? So now I have to start the whole thing again. And for me personally, I felt the reason I was not having a girlfriend was because I don't know how to play the guitar. And the reason I don't know how to play the guitar because this person went to the US, right? So when we're young, obviously we love to blame others for our problems, right? So we thought कि इसको solve करते हैं. Tried it for like a couple of months. Pre-smartphone era, trying to build a directory, etc. किया कोशिश, सब कुछ किया, and didn't work out, right? And obviously the first thing that you learn about yourself is कि यार उतना stud नहीं हो जितना आप सोचते हो, right? So right, so and at that time I went about doing my MBA. So I went to Lucknow, and that's where I met Vineet, who's the other co-founder here, right? So he was my senior at college, so we've been friends for 14 years. Out of this 14, we have worked for almost 8 years together.
Wow.
I came out of MBA. I went to Unilever, spent almost 3 years there. Outstanding time. I think it's one of the best places to learn about how to become a great manager, right? But to some extent, I had this whole itch about doing things much faster than that the company could have provided, right? So with Livers, it was a slow but a short process, right? And I wanted to crunch it. So I thought, hey, let's go out and finally करना तो startup ही है, तो let's जाके एक startup join कर लेते हैं. So I ended up joining Snapdeal back in 2012. These are early days of startups in the country. They were not as glamorous as they are today. Like, startup founders were not demigods.
Unicorn wasn't a buzzword.
Absolutely, yeah. We haven't heard of the word. It's very surprising that it was 2014 or 13, and maybe when I first heard the word marketplace, right? That word was not used in the ecosystem at all. E-commerce was the word, but आज marketplace तो हम ऐसे use करते हैं as if everybody knows about what a marketplace is, right? And so many of these terms, right? Some of these terms came about because initially Flipkart or Snapdeal built it, like RTO, return. Now people use it. अरे RTO कर दो यार. ठीक है. तो मतलब it's like you can find people using it colloquially, right? People who are not even in the industry, delivery boy will call कि भैया आपका order लेके आया, अरे आप RTO कर दो, अरे मतलब so some of these things some of these words have built right in front of when us. So spent amazing 5.5 years there working and building large marketplaces, and so Vineet was also with me. In 2017 we were actually coming out of Snapdeal thinking that we'll start a business, right? And that's when this whole pet care thesis first came into our heads, and ended up meeting some very smart young folks from Licious, Abhay and Vivek, and they said कि यार ये धंधा करते हैं, मीट बनाते हैं, right? And I come from a small town, and what has always intrigued me is a a fundamental problem, right? At Snapdeal, the problem was very interesting. When I come from a small city called Karna, like I said, and वहाँ पे assortment ही नहीं होगा, right? तो मतलब कुछ खरीदना है, पैसे हैं, तो the whole thesis was when I'll have money, I'll go to Delhi and buy, right? So you got money, you went to Delhi, and then you figured out कि यार problems kind of still remains the same. You go to a store, you go to a mall, but at the end of the day, either the pricing or the assortment still limits you, right? And then that was the time when eBay was there, and you could question, is it fake or real, etc. And we felt, hey, somebody's got to solve this problem, right? And Snapdeal was there, so it just made absolute sense to go and join a mission where something which is commoditized today, which is e-commerce, wasn't as much as back then. It was solving a real problem of people trying to buy stuff to get them the right quality, assortment, product, and availability, right? So price and pricing, right? वो करना था किसी को. So solve for that. When cut to next 5 years, and you'll be talking about Licious, and the first fact when I heard that more than 75% of Indians eat meat kind of shocks you, right? And the second fact that shocks you is the fact that Punjab is actually one of the lowest meat eating population in the country, because in our heads it comes as कि यार सिर्फ वही लोग मीट खाते हैं.
हमें तो लगता है पंजाब में सब चिकन टिक्का ही खाते हैं सब.
Absolutely, but that's not true, right? It's one of the lowest penetration of meat, and when you go to a place like Telangana and Andhra, so almost 99 point some percentage of people eat meat there. So that kind of changed the perspective. And then the second part was, if that's how the penetration is, and if it's the most expensive commodity, somebody needs to work to make this whole supply chain so much formal, right? Somebody needs to ensure that these products are as organized as maybe my salt is, maybe my bottled water is, right? When a 10 rupee bottled water is, now nobody looks at Bisleri say, "Arey, अच्छा क्या मतलब NRI हो गए हो तुम," right? And there were times when it was like that. If those are the days, then when I'm buying meat which is so much, there's so high probability of it getting spoiled, why should I not work on the supply chain on that? So those were some of the questions that we had in mind back then, and we said, hey, look, it's a great timing, great opportunity to build a D2C brand. And those were amazing 4 years, honestly, right? In the next 2 years, Abhay and Vivek elevated me to be a co-founder. That was suddenly a very different experience, because now you like thinking so much forward into the company as to what should you do a couple of years down the line, and also getting to know so much on the fundraise process, right? Something which I did not know before this. And what came out was a beautiful story of, actually, let me put it this way. For the first time, I actually realized what a customer-centric company is, right? Because everybody talks about it. हर बंदा बोलता है यार कि customer, I know what customer experience is, and I bring it to the forefront. I have a culture of customer experience. Everybody talks about it, but it was actually for the first time when I understood what it means, right? That as much you will talk about business, you will talk about customer experience, and that's the only way to solve it, right? It cannot be a side conversation. Business cannot supersede customer experience, right? They are equals, and they got to be treated like equals. Even till the last day, every single customer complaint was read by the whole leadership team. Every single customer complaint.
Wow.
Right? It's something as simple as कि उस marinade में नमक ज़्यादा लगा मेरे को, right? Something as simple as packet खुला हुआ मिला मेरे को, right? As simple as इस packet में vacuum नहीं था. And it's, they are not taken as exceptions. They're taken as ये solve करना, ये अगला नहीं आएगा, right? And the accuracy cannot be 99.9%, because when you're big, 0.1% is a large number. It has to be 100%. So there is, and everybody knows there is nothing called as 100%, right? But this company actually said, this is business and customer experience, and that customer experience is 100%, right? So वो thesis से build किया था, उस thesis से build किया था. So much fun, very tough problem to solve. It's not an easy problem to solve.
I'm sure.
Right.
Just one quick question here. So that there was a certain degree of customer experience obsession, right? And to the fact that you're saying the entire leadership read those complaints, and they were being taken up very seriously.
Yeah.
just thinking, if I was a founder of another company where customer experience was, let's say I wanted to prioritize it so much, my immediate concern is, what's the 80-20 here, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that I have a business to grow, I have so many things to do. This 0.1% of a hole in my entire boat is there versus potential 5 more other holes, let's say, in something else, right? There are things breaking down all the time within a fast growing company, and it needs so much attention. How would you get consensus on aligning the team to saying, what, this should not happen next time, vacuum kaise nahi tha, and how does the team defend? Like, labor ने नहीं किया होगा यार. It could be the frustrated expression that would come. नहीं किया होगा, एक छूट गया गलती से QC में. But सर ऐसा नहीं होता है रोजाना. एक बार हो गया पूरे वीक में, इतने बड़े सारे ऑर्डर्स में. What is the real counter to that?
Yeah. So मैं पहले वाला आपका वो आंसर करता हूँ. बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन आपने कहा कि यार मतलब if there's a boat, there are 5 holes, you will say, यार let me first plug the bigger ones, right?
There are always many holes in a startup boat.
Absolutely. So the difference is, do you want to get to this problem at the first hole, or do you want to wait for 5 holes to get created and then start solving it, right? So that's the fundamental philosophy. If you are waiting for the 5 holes to happen, then what your approach is absolutely fine. कि यार मेरे पास 5 होल है, मुझे पहला कौन सा solve करना है, that's a priority order, 80-20 लगा लो, जो भी लगा लो, right? Exponential curve, right? Effort versus impact metric लगा लो, जो भी लगाना है. But here the question was different, because in a context, see, customer experience is not about plugging the holes, right? And that's how it needs to be thought about, right? Customer experience is when you get the first hole, you got to ensure why this hole first needs to be plugged, and then you need to figure out why this hole happened, and so that this next hole cannot, for the same reason, cannot come in. Now there can be another reason why the next hole will come, right? So that's the first part to the answer to the question that you asked. The second question you asked was around in an everyday company there will always be certain things which will fall out, right? वो हमेशा होगा, and you are absolutely right. But tell me one thing, as a customer, do you care about that? आपने Licious ने या किसी कंपनी ने तो 10,000 पैकेट बनाए, पर आपने तो 10,000 नहीं खरीदे ना. आप तो वहां पे नहीं कर रहे कि यार आप you care about your packet.
So that's the difference between data point versus a human.
Absolutely. So जब आप data point लोगे तो it is 1 out of 10,000 customer, but for that one customer, that is 100% of that customer sample set.
Correct.
Right? अब वो तो आपको छोड़ देगा, वो बोलेगा यार मतलब ये नहीं हो पाएगा इनसे, right? ये I think they what they talk they don't preach. And if you keep drilling this down to your team, right? And then the team doesn't ask this question, then the team figure out the ways and means to say, hey, I know they will be fatigued, right? So the problem statement, and I know you're also a very first principle thinker. The problem statement is that people are getting tired, or people's work is getting monotonous, and because of that there are certain lapses which are happening. But does it mean that the problem statement is clear? And if the problem statement is clear, this can be solved. You and I both know it can be solved, right? अब ये solve करने जाओगे, फिर इसके भी कुछ बहुत minute corner cases मिलेंगे जो solve नहीं हो रहे होंगे, फिर उसको drill down करके उसको solve करेंगे, and you keep doing it till you know that no new hole will come in. Well, holes will always come in. There is no doubt about it, and I agree on you. But
a delayed hole is not acceptable. That it's been leaking for a while. That's not okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. No, I think that makes a lot of difference actually, because the first thing that popped in my mind was like, what proportion, really? And I just realized that that's what every other person thinks, and that's why customer centricity becomes just like a jargon and a buzzword to throw around.
Yeah.
And when you actually sit down and pay it that attention it deserves, right? As you said, that we drill it down, we have a certain rigor and across the team, that changes things. Fair enough. So I think I'm sure Licious must have been a very a remarkable experience in that sense, especially the product and the supply chain both are like highly sensitive in some sense, right? The product is something that can get spoiled, and if not packed well, or if not kept well, if not frozen well, and so on. There are so many variables that need to be controlled, and it's a very inherently complex a problem. What until now, right? There have been some companies, some brands that have come up with packed chickens and sausages, and I could see them on the supermarket shelves and in the refrigerator, right? Those were there. What could they not solve that you were solving for is not clear in my head. I would like to get a sense of that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, let me help you understand the problem statement, and then it'll be much easier. Sure. So in any business, there are three parts, right? So the first is supply. The other part is obviously creating a demand for that supply. And the third is connecting the supply to the demand, right? So when e-commerce came in, interestingly, there was a lot of supply, there was a lot of demand. What e-commerce ends up building is that bridge between that supply and demand, right? There are banks basically first created a supply, and then there was always a demand. And then banks created two parts, one is supply and the way to bridge the supply to the demand, right? Demand always existed of, let's say, loans or something, or some of those things. So most of the businesses have three facets, right? Now Licious में देखें तो यार इसमें क्या था कि इसमें तीनों चीजें प्रॉब्लम थी, okay? The supply, there was a dearth of high quality meat supply in the country.
By the virtue of accessibility or production, what would you say?
Production, right? With the whole ecosystem, the way it existed, was built to cater to a demand which existed for so many years. कि यार मेरे को अपने सामने chicken काट के दे दो, and I feel that is the most clean and most hygienic way of giving meat. But fundamentally, that was not true. How do you pack a chicken and make it safer at the same time? How do you follow the right processes at the time of growing the chicken, right? So that did not exist, right? So imagine solving a large part of the problem, which was solving for the right kind of supply. Now the second part was demand, creating a demand for a higher quality product, which is also going to be at a little bit higher price, right? So that's the second part of the problem. And one of the biggest third part of the problem is to how do you connect both of them? Because we are talking about meat, which has to be through the supply chain at any temperature between 0 to 4 degrees. That's a very narrow temperature range, right? 0 to 4 degrees. Because anything below 0 will make the meat tougher, and anything more than 4 degrees is going to decrease the shelf life of the product, right? So you only have, those few temperatures where you need to control the product right through the journey, right? So Licious practically is a three-pronged problem statement, and hence it is very tough. Now, what you have seen people doing is solving one part of the journey, and there might be certain people who are solving it better than others, right? Somebody solving for just packaging a product and distributing it to the customer. Somebody is probably only solving for creating a high quality supply,
like free range chicken is their proposition and stuff, right?
Yeah, but it's not able to either solve for the middle layer or solve for how do you create a demand to the customer, right? So now and hence when Licious was being envisioned, right, that was also time 2015 16. Imagine that e-commerce was growing, but it was quick delivery to humne abhi suna, right? 90 minutes delivery was not something that was anybody would have envisioned. It sounded stupid doing at that time, right? Now for Licious, it was a necessary evil, because it had Licious had to build that ecosystem to manage this whole supply chain, which had to be managed at 0 to 4 degrees, right? So imagine there were like three different large problems being solved by the same company, and over time that became the mode, because somebody was able to execute it, is why that company became much larger, and other people were only trying to shy away from one of the other parts of the problem. So now hopefully you're able to understand why building Licious was a very difficult piece of the problem than anything else. And that's practically what Vineet, Aman, myself, the three founders at SuperTails, spent most of our time at SuperTails.
So in that sense, you understand. Yeah, so in that sense, you understand the importance of vertical integration very well, right? This is, in some ways, is it vertical integration or no? Would you call it that? Because you're deep into supply chain and production both. right?
Yeah.
And you're not just picking up one aspect and then saying, I'm going to focus only on this. Someone could have been someone could have doubled down on, let's say, just creating a cold chain network and say that, whoever is producing good chicken, I'm going to get it delivered to the retail shelves. So you're saying you made sure that you controlled the entire production and distribution experience before it could turn into customer satisfaction and experience.
And very you have a very valid point, and interestingly, most of the companies who talk about it are very, very large organization, right? And when they talk about vertically integrated, imagine a startup trying to do that.
It's a scary thought. I mean, I would have to say that, I'm a startup, I'm a nobody today, right? I just have these visions and dreams, and I claim to say that, I can fix 3 nails with 1 hammer, kind of a feeling, right?
Absolutely.
But the fact that you guys have now done it at a certain scale, huge scale, is proof that you've done it well. I wish we had more time to kind of get deep into a lot of this, but of course for this call we'll have to keep it till here. One last question that I wanted to know, which is a bit more on the especially for Licious, was there any stigma when the business was being created, and what kinds of challenges in a more social and moral context where did you have to face? Because it's not, I don't think it's a stigma-free industry in that sense.
Very right, Nivedan. I mean, let's start from my own house. When I was a kid, my mom used to say in Punjabi, "Beta pad le, nahi to kasai ban jana."
Wow.
Right? And it's a very common thing which people say in Punjabi household. You got to study or you will become a butcher, right? Now, right from the start, this has been ingrained in some of us that's probably the lowest strata of society.
You should have studied, Varun. You eventually did become a butcher.
I know, when I was joining Licious, and I went back and said, after, my mom again commented, after all this padhai that you have done, this is what, again, you've gone back to the same thing. Yeah. So, but it's, as much as it's funny, it's a scary thought. Right? That's the reality, right? I've gone to hinterlands of the country, met people who, so this is farming. This is no different from farming, right? So who farm animals, right? And it's not a great sight, right? I think agricultural farmers are definitely much better. And if and we don't talk about agricultural farmer to being in the best state either, right? And imagine this being even much lower. So let's talk about states like Maharashtra, where a single mother, aged mother, or family who probably this is the last resort will be doing goat rearing, right? And so it's not funny when you go, because that if this is the only sustenance thing, then they are not, or let's say, the lowest strata of the society, right? So there is a lot of stigma, not just to butchering, which is obviously colloquially also is used as in a negative connotation, but even rearing, even farming is not, there is a stigma attached to it.
It's not seen with a positive light in that sense.
It's not seen in a positive light, but look, everybody's a human. It's somebody's got to do a job. You look at the other side of it. When we think of a wholesome meal on a Sunday afternoon where everybody's sitting across the table, you expect meat to be there. So that's your joyous moment, right? There is something happiness in the society, in the family. You expect meat to be there, right? And that's one side of the story. So you as humans, we want to consume it. As consumers, we want to look at this in a joyous light, but we cannot shy away from the reality on the other side. We can't say, "Arey, matlab tum to butcher ho," right? And one of the really good things that we did at Licious was that we said we will not call them butchers, we'll call them meat technicians, right? So because butcher, unfortunately, unlike the West, where people are proud butchers, people are proud farmers, right? And you go to a farming land in, let's say, Australia, and they will talk about, I'm a 4th generation lamb rearer, right? And so that's how proudly they talk about, but that's not true in India at all. So we said, hey, we have got to make these people upgrade in their lives, right? And let's start with what you call them, right? So they will not be called butchers at all. They will be called technicians, because that's what they really do. Right. So some of these things, and it's one step at a time, right? You can't go and change the whole world overnight, but that's a hope that somewhere it will start and people will start changing. And how do you treat your partners in this, right? Some of the partners did not even have a bank account, right? So how do you upgrade them? I still remember one of the earliest suppliers of ours, and his name was Shafiullah. Over time, and he was in this industry, right? He was a butcher, and he expected his next generation to come and do the same thing. And he was one of the earlier people who was working as a partner to Snapdeal and Licious. And I remember when his son started going to school, and he said he's going to become an engineer. How proud he was that my next generation is not going to be called the same thing as what I was called. Right? So some of those things are deeply ingrained. But as one of the good things that organization of an industry happens, which it does to the industry, is that some of these stigma starts going away, right? And that's also that's definitely an unsaid thing that a company ends up doing for good, right? And hopefully, as we grow, Licious and some other companies will definitely help this whole ecosystem be much better, right? From the question that you asked.
No, that's a beautiful thought. So I think, I think every profession does deserve certain respect. These people are at the end serving someone with what they need, and to have a very traditional negative connotation is not just useful to anyone. Absolutely to not anyone. So I think that's interestingly, that's a social benefit of organizing this industry by something like Licious makes a difference there. So we've covered a lot of this. You've had and to me, I think one of the most important things is that you've spent years in a lot of first of its kind problem statements, right? And you've had years of early stage experience in that sense before you, of course, got big. So this is a problem I've discussed with a lot of people, that when someone is kicking off their own company, they're a startup, right? It's not easy, like nothing's easy, but it becomes much easier when you have the right kind of people around you. And if you can build a team that thinks like you, and that thinks in at least in alignment with the company's mission, vision, they have the right skills, and you want to be in a position to pay them. All of these are big challenges, and all these founder groups that I'm a part of, the biggest constant single problem that everyone has is how to find the right people. कोई developer दिलवा दो, कोई CTO दिलवा दो, कोई CFO दिलवा दो. Like this is surprisingly, with all the job portals out there and whatnot, hiring is a big problem. And I felt you were the right person to speak about this. And if you have any thoughts on how you've dealt with it, and what do you think is the right framework for someone starting out, I mean, that would be a wonderful thing to learn for us.
Awesome question, Nivedan. I think this is definitely one of the things that takes a little bit of actually a lot of effort, and it definitely is one of the highest priorities. So when I think of, okay, so let's think of a new startup, and the question that every founder has is, how do I hire the first set of people, right? I'm as you know, whenever I've done this, it's always the same question, right? How do I hire? Who do I hire? Where do I hire? So let me break it down into maybe 4 or 5 questions. The first is, what are the first few roles that we need to hire for? One of the subsequent question definitely is, how much money should I spend on all these roles? Then the next question normally is, where do I find these prospective employees, right? And a subsequent question to that is, why would this prospective employee join me or join my startup? Like, abhi to kuch hai nahi, koi janta hi nahi hai, right? And also discussing, I, I would definitely like to discuss how do you execute this whole thing, right? Because बोलना तो आसान है, but in reality करना क्या है, मतलब as they talk in a startup, GTM क्या है इसका, right? So first is like, what are the roles that you need to hire for? I think first important role that everybody needs to hire, unless they're being a single founder, is finding a co-founder, right? um, I normally suggest people having co-founders. It definitely helps. It's quite lonely there. There's so many decisions that need to be taken, and the more people you are, the better. I find odd numbers more comforting than even, because odd numbers have a sense of at least some kind of a democracy that can run. With two people,
you can't have a tie.
You can't have a tie. My while we are three founders, so it's easy to say here, but yes, I do like the number 3 because it kind of helps us move on with decisions much faster. So how do you find the right co-founder? I look at them as practically the better half, right? They're the spouse, the professional spouse, right? So one thing is, you got to know how to live under the same roof. It's very simple. Complementary work skills.
Sorry, Varun, your voice broke down for last 10 seconds. So
okay, I'll just start again.
Yeah, please. From there.
Yeah. So the first question is, what are the most important roles to hire? So, I always say, unless you are a single founder and you've decided to be one, it's best to have a co-founder. I like odd numbers there than even numbers, largely because there's always a consensus which can be built within 3. So that's my preferred go-to number, but 2 is perfectly fine, and it has worked for so many of the founders out there. But how do you find this co-founder? I think one of the biggest attributes is that practically are your professional wife, or the spouse, or the better half, right? Husband or wife. And so it has to be quite complementary skills which kind of work. You got to know how to live under the same roof, I would say. Conflict resolution is important, and I think what works in a marriage is the same thing which works here. You got to be respectful of the other person, right? So if there is a respect that kind of people have in general, especially within co-founders, it honestly goes a long way. There are times everybody is very different under pressure, but knowing how somebody is going to be under pressure is as important, and being respectful about that is important, right? The next is obviously the first few roles that are important are the ones which are core to the business, and preferably what people go for are the kind of expertise that founders don't have, right? So if in our case, for example, if we never knew digital, we said, hey, to kick off the business you would require somebody in the digital. A lot of times people hence go for hiring a CTO, because it's like a consultant and an operational guy coming together and then building a company, so they will require a CTO, right? So obviously that becomes the first hiring, and it's absolutely right. That's what a lot of time, in this case, skills that you don't have won't exist there, right? Another question when you have to do the first few roles is, and I've seen a lot of times, I have had this dilemma. I see, do you build bottoms up or do you build top down, right? Do you hire your first leaders first and then the team hiring, or आप ऐसे करो कि यार अभी तो आप काम चलाने के लिए, just to kickstart, you start you hire some of the folks, and then over time hire the top management after that. What has worked for me normally is that I like to hire the leadership team first, and then let the leadership team build their own teams, right? Because that you look for attributes which are quite similar to your own, right? If I'm a salesperson, I would like to find somebody who's more salesy, and I'll end up liking that person for any job for that matter. It's best to leave that discretion to the person who's actually going to manage those people, right? So that's what has worked for me most of the times. I follow that philosophy. Having said that, I know certain founders who have gone bottoms up, and they've been able to build amazing, outstanding teams, right? So to summarize, yeah, what roles first? Obviously, co-founder first, then roles that you don't have too much expertise in, and then, in my opinion, building top-down kind of normally works better. It works for me. The next question is how much money you spend on these roles, and it's like a question which always is there, right? You decide to spend $100, there is a better candidate at 150. You decide to spend 150, there's a better candidate at 200. It is always going to be true. We normally follow a very ulta approach. हम पहले business plan बनाते हैं, उस business plan में ना सब लोग fit कर देते हैं, उसका पैसा fit कर लेते हैं, and once you have that allocation, if it is 100, it will not be 105. There is some error that or something that you can always agree, but in almost all cases, and I say almost because there have been a few exceptions that even we have taken, we never exceed the agreed quantity, the quantum of number that we want to hire a person for, because it's always a never-ending thing, right? And we've seen this in the past when we go out shopping, यार मतलब 10,000 रुपए का फोन लेना था यार, 15,000 वाला अच्छा लगेगा, obviously अच्छा लगेगा because that's a better phone, it has more feature and hence it's expensive. You go for 15,000 and say, hey, there's a 20,000 phone out there which has even more features, right? It has,
there are always ways to justify this, that the right person that I found is going to make so much difference to the company.
Absolutely.
And this and that. I mean, where does this debate end? I mean, you could cut the bar at this budget that you had pre-decided, versus say that, you know what, my gut says that he's the right person for the company, I'm going to go 30% up my budget.
Yeah, so
this is a hard call.
It's a hard call, but that's why I'm saying, because this is always going to be a hard call, we simply cut out this clutter by doing one thing. If the budget has been agreed, we will not look at even a better candidate post that, because when you look at an individual, a couple of lakhs here or there doesn't matter, but when you look at the whole business plan, it's not just one people, it's a massive amount of army out there, right? And couple of lakhs for every employee is going to be, practically your liquidity, right? So ये थोड़ा सा ट्रिकी होता है, and I've made this mistakes myself कि यार ठीक है ना, इस रोल के लिए यार 5 लाख रुपए 10 लाख रुपए एक्स्ट्रा खर्च लेते हैं ना, ये this person for the extra 5 lakhs is going to get us a delta of a crore,
exactly,
right? And that's an argument, right? But remember, that's always going to be true, right? यार ये बिल्कुल amazing culture fit है, कल ऐसा बंदा नहीं मिलेगा. And the worst of this is, यार आज मेरे पास बंदा नहीं है, आज ये ले लेते हैं, पहले सॉल्व करते हैं, उसके बाद नेक्स्ट लोगों से ना ढंग से करेंगे, राइट? ये बहुत कॉमन है. ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू बी देयर. आई विल टेल यू द फोर्थ वन व्हिच इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट आल्सो, व्हिच इज लाइक, यार इस प्राइस में बंदा नहीं मिलेगा, राइट? जो हमने प्राइस लिखा हुआ है इसमें बंदा मिलेगा नहीं, मार्केट में नहीं है, हमने ट्राई कर लिया, राइट? जो भी बंदा अप्लाई कर रहा है वो इससे ऊपर ही है, राइट? एंड द आंसर टू ऑल ऑफ दिस इज, एंड honestly this is why, having hired maybe 1,000 people in my life, that you will find any person for any role at any price point, right? You just have to be patient. You just need to keep trying. But वो give up करना बहुत आसान है. एक के लिए give up करोगे, सबके लिए give up करोगे, and then the whole thing starts looking very blue.
The exceptions, right? Become the norm.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I've always realized is 6 months down the line, you don't remember that you did not have a person for a certain role, and you kind of did that person role on your own. वो सब भूल जाते हो आप, right? So it's okay to be, let's say, a month without a person or 2 months without a person at early startup. Somebody will have to work a couple of extra hours, right? So that's my take on the money piece. We also had one policy that while people in a startup expect people to take pay cuts and come, we never do that. That's our policy.
That means you have certain amounts of funds in your bank, parked in your bank.
Yes, obviously.
In the sense that you're talking as a funded startup right now, in that.
Yeah, I definitely am talking about like a funded startup, and you're right, right? So, but that's from a funded startup. I've seen a lot of people, even having the funding, look at startups as where people should take a pay cut and come. I don't say that's not a right policy. Maybe somebody gets overcompensated on the stocks, etc., and that's fine if it works for someone. I don't think, in my experience, it's worked really well. There is a want of money जिससे घर चलता है, and nobody likes to take pay cuts. Very few, some people do, most of them don't, right? The third is where do I find this employees? And
Yeah.
there's this whole concept which has been very famous recently, which is LSA, luck surface area, right? So you always got to increase your luck surface area, right? So all those groups that you talked about, Nivedan, where people are asking is just
Yeah.
increasing your luck surface area,
Everyone's doing
right?
that. Yeah.
Right. One interesting academic theory, again coming back to that, is that you're more likely to find a job or likely to find a candidate from people that you know lesser than from the people that you know more, right? And you know, maybe people can go to YouTube. I think this is the 6 degree of separation kind of a thing where
Yeah, because
uh,
we kind of are unable to imagine that another degree of separation increases the lux surface area significantly more,
absolutely,
and then
yeah,
significantly more. It's exponential in 6 degrees. You can
it's
reach anyone
exponential,
in the
right?
world.
So yeah, you cracked it right, but yeah, it normally it sounds counterintuitive,
Yeah,
right? Because you feel you have a higher probability from your closest friends
correct.
to find a person, but it's actually the other way around, right?
Correct.
So to do that, you got to know a lot of people, right? So
Yeah,
you
I'm generally the guy promoting the exact same thing of increasing your lux surface area. I'm the guy who believes in top of the funnel has to be always solid, and
absolutely.
let's not scrape for or let's not look for things in scraps. Let's have a big top of funnel. I always have that approach.
Yeah, and when it comes to hiring, be absolutely
Hmm.
मतलब वो सोचना नहीं है, just don't think about it twice, just post, right? And just increase your luck surface area. You never know, because see, interestingly, it is like a bowler playing the ball. You know, bowler just needs one good ball to get a batsman out, right? So sometimes it's just that यार एक बंदे से ही तो connect करना है जो convert हो जाए,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so how do you increase that chance of finding so many of these one person that you have to hire? So you know, that's just increasing the luck surface area, right? And that's what works. It's part of the JD of a founder to do it, so it can't be outsourced. It shouldn't be outsourced, right? Rather, it's in your JD as a founder to find these people. It's in your JD to pitch to them. It's in your JD to get these people hired and them to come and start working, right? So I've seen some people saying, yeah, सबसे पहले एक HR hire करूँगा so that they can help us in finding people. It's not. Honestly, it's your job. It's your core
Hmm.
job, and it's going to remain your job for
You'll
all your
always
life.
be the HR.
You will always be the person who has to go and hire, leadership
Yeah,
teams,
yeah,
etc.
fair enough.
Right? So वहाँ पे you करना है. The next is like, how do I pitch to someone? Why would
Yeah.
someone join your startup,
Yeah.
right? And it's honestly not very different from a VC pitch, right?
Yeah.
It is, we use similar templates, a little bit more jazzier ones for candidates, and we did it because उनको नहीं पता यार, मतलब हम कितना मर्जी कहानी बना लें कि हम सुपर टेल्स हैं, we want to change the way people look at pet care, before that at Licious, before that at Snapdeal, but when you're an early stage startup, people don't know about you, right? And people have an inherent fear of doing things that they don't know about, right? Then it is about you it is about a pitch, right? And so you need to get an audience, right? And so to find that person, you have to find an audience, and for that you have to just go to LinkedIn, keep writing, keep pitching. We built a pitch deck for prospective employees, very similar to a smaller version without the numbers, obviously, which was our VC deck. It was a very similar deck, and that worked, right? People look at that, they just want to know more, and that's all you want to know at that time is, यार बस एक बार कॉफी पे बात करने के लिए मान जाओ, या एक वीडियो कॉल करने के लिए मान जाओ, because then it's your luck surface area which will kind of work after that. Last is, how do I execute it well? It's the founder's job. Like I already talked about it. ये तो core job है, तो JD में है. So at any time you will have to go to LinkedIn, you have to have those pitch documents, you just have to keep adding people, hope they will add you back, write them a message, take LinkedIn premium, write them an email. But this works, right? And you be part of more groups, people as good as Nivedan are there, and hope that they propagate in their next set of separation networks, right? And that's the only way for it to work.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think a lot of people probably have a little bit of a hesitation in reaching out to enough people, feeling a little needy and vulnerable in some ways. Whenever someone asks for anything, in this case the ask is a little easier than a usual ask, where someone, but people are a little cautious. And I always say that, understand that everyone as a human we enjoy helping others.
Yeah.
Right? If I were to, I would say this to imagine this reverse scenario: someone asks you for a small favor, would you feel good about yourself turning it down?
Yeah.
Small favor, of course, they're not asking your life.
Yeah.
So why don't you imagine yourself as on the other end?
Absolutely.
And say that, I'm giving the other person an opportunity to be a little more altruistic and feel better about themselves with this small little favor, maybe a WhatsApp forward,
Yeah.
kind of that. And as soon as I realized that that's how our human psychology works, and I love to help other people in these small ways, and never say no to this. When it's a big one, then you have to make trade-offs and think and this and that, and then you say, okay, let me help you with this much, but for the rest, let me point you to another resource or a person, right? That's how you kind of deal with it. But as soon as I realized that, I became extremely open to reaching out to people shamelessly. When I use the word shamelessly, because there needs to be no shame. Right? Not because I am a shameless person, but there needs to be no shame. It's a simple, social, or I don't know what kind of an anxiety that we share. And that personally has helped me out a lot. I've become much more comfortable asking for help, much more comfortable reaching out, and I've seen people love helping each other. I find that when I hear people say that, people are selfish and they don't help, I'm the one always defending humanity, that I completely disagree. That you can't theorize that. Simply can't. People enjoy helping each other, and there are enough proofs. I'm sure there, as you said, luck surface area, right? The luck surface area only works when people do indeed care about helping others, because the word does propagate through people, through networks.
Absolutely. 100% agreeing with whatever you said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I think we've had a wonderful chat. We've had in fact, this is probably one of the longer chats I've had. Also because I felt like, there was constantly so much value that you were able to kind of share for every question that I had, and I felt it was simply pointless to interrupt such a great thing coming out right now. So we're literally sitting at 1:30, and I'm in a nice way. I think it's a very good thing that we are a little late for today's podcast, right? I hope that doesn't disrupt your schedule though, and I'm really glad that we had this chat. I'm worried we didn't get the time to talk a little bit more about your personal journey. I wish we had that time more. Maybe we'll find another occasion where we pick up one more topic and drill down there, and I would love to cover it there. So thank you so much, Varun. It really means a lot. I really appreciate you sharing so many insights and lessons candidly. You've had a phenomenal journey, and if some of these lessons, whether it be from customer experience, whether it be hiring the right team and so on, if any of these land on the right ears, I think that'll be a job very well done for me and for both of us, I would assume. So
thank you so much for absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. You're doing a fantabulous job, because the ecosystem requires a lot of support, right? I would have loved to hear some of this podcast a couple of years ago, because I needed that support, right? And interestingly, what I've realized is, there was the other day somebody was asking me, how does this whole Indian entrepreneur ecosystem different, right? And why do you think it's so vibrant and people are so bullish about it? And I said, apart from all the other things, one of the very important things is a very helpful ecosystem.
Yes.
Right. And the more people don't shy away from asking questions, they will be surprised of to what lengths people are ready to go and help. Right. And it's sometimes not just a small thing, but it's sometimes people have gone out of it. I don't even sometimes know how do I thank them for the job they end up doing for me. Right. It was not the job. I'm never going to probably thank them back in the right manner either, but it solved large problems. Right. And for you to come in and have some of us here with the little bit of experience that we've built, propagating it to the larger set of people, it's only going to make this whole ecosystem much better. So so thanks for doing that. It's absolutely amazing being here, and all.
Thank you so much, Varun. Your words mean a lot, and I'm just hopeful that the purpose of doing Coffee and Startups and these podcasts is primarily because I empathize with this journey quite a lot. I've been on the early stage front more than the late stage, personally, where I've been the first person with the founder, or when I've started, what I've started didn't work out really well, but I've usually been the first person to bet on that vision and mission when we had zero funds, no microwave to heat our lunches. So I've typically been that guy, and I empathize most with early stage founders. And I do think that with that empathy and with that natural curiosity that I kind of try to bring in, there will be value that will be shared across the ecosystem. I want to be that facilitator, that enabler of value sharing happening. And this is an initiative. I'm constantly thinking of better ways to do that, and constantly trying to think of wild ideas which are worth laughing about. So maybe I'll share them with you as well, of things I've been thinking of, and I would love to hear your thoughts on those as well. So thank you so much. We'll stay in touch, and I would love to at a later date again, whenever you have the right time and opportunity. Maybe when you have a very interesting milestone that you're very proud of sharing again. I think that would be ideal time. I would love if you could come and share that over here as well. So
Somebody.
thank you so much, Varun.
Done deal.
Very nice.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.